with
have
respect.
no
She's
idea
been voted
what's
in
going
by the
on in
people of
United
Illinois.
States because the BBC deceives them with people like this from the far left squad. Did you try to find a socialist to put her on the air? I mean, this is the lowest level of journalistic standards I've ever seen.
Keir Starmer's leadership of the UK Labour Party has faced mounting criticism, particularly in how he has handled both domestic challenges and international relations. One of the most pressing issues for Starmer has been the BBC's treatment of his leadership and the party. The BBC, a prominent force in British media, has long been accused of exhibiting bias, especially when covering the Labour Party and its leadership. Detractors argue that the BBC is overly sympathetic to certain political ideologies, often giving excessive airtime to views that align with far-left positions, while neglecting a more balanced or nuanced approach. This perceived bias has fostered a growing sense of distrust among Labour supporters, as well as the broader public, who increasingly view the network as lacking journalistic neutrality. For Starmer, this situation only exacerbates his struggle to present a cohesive and competent leadership, as the BBC's coverage contributes to a negative portrayal of both him and his party. The latest incident, where a BBC journalist clashed with Trump's spokesperson, has added more fuel to this fire. During the exchange, the spokesperson angrily accused the BBC of deliberately misleading the British public by giving a platform to voices critical of Trump and, by extension, figures within the political establishment. His critique specifically highlighted the BBC's alignment with far-left voices, which have long been critical of Trump's administration. This has sparked further frustration among Labour supporters who feel the BBC's role in amplifying certain narratives, especially those hostile to their political views, has only worsened the party's image. This growing dissatisfaction with the BBC's editorial approach has compounded Starmer's leadership difficulties. As a political leader, Starmer has struggled with inconsistent messaging and a lack of decisive action, and the media's portrayal of his leadership has made these challenges even more difficult to overcome. With the BBC's influence on public opinion, Starmer's inability to counteract these portrayals leaves him vulnerable. Labour's already weakened credibility is further undermined by the belief that key media outlets are offering an unfairly negative perspective. The issue of media bias remains a significant challenge for Starmer, and unless he addresses it head-on, it could continue to deepen doubts about his leadership and jeopardize the future of the Labour Party. The task of managing media relationships, especially with influential organisations like the BBC, will be crucial if Starmer hopes to regain public trust and restore Labour's standing. The confrontation between the BBC reporter and Donald Trump's spokesperson was more than just a policy disagreement. It was a vivid illustration of how media narratives are shaped by power dynamics. The spokesperson's response, particularly his criticism of the BBC's guest selection, revealed a deeper frustration with what he perceived as widespread bias in the mainstream media. The reporter had chosen to feature a far-left Democratic congresswoman to discuss Trump's policies, and the spokesperson did not hold back in accusing the BBC of giving a platform to someone with views considered extreme within American politics. The congresswoman's labeling of Trump as a dictator and fascist, the spokesperson argued, was not merely a political mistake, but a clear misrepresentation of the truth. He viewed her characterization as fundamentally dishonest, and the BBC's decision to air it without offering a counterpoint or a balanced perspective was, according to him, a serious failure of journalistic responsibility. The spokesperson's frustration became even more apparent as he directly accused the BBC of misleading the British public. He framed this as not merely a matter of a single interview, but as part of a broader, troubling trend where media outlets, particularly those like the BBC, allowed political bias to shape their coverage. For him, this was a clear example of the media pushing a far-left agenda that systematically undermined conservative voices and viewpoints. His criticism was not limited to the specific interview, but extended to the larger issue of how media outlets, by presenting one-sided narratives, influenced public perception, both in the UK and globally. This exchange opened up a much-needed debate on the role of the media in shaping political discourse in a time when polarized narratives are more common than ever. By raising this issue in such a direct manner, Trump's spokesperson drew attention to the wider implications of how media outlets can manipulate political conversations. In the age of media saturation, where every broadcast is viewed through a particular ideological lens, he argued that there is little room for nuance or balanced viewpoints. The spokesperson's harsh criticism of the BBC served as a warning about the role media outlets play in influencing public opinion. When the media fails to provide a comprehensive range of voices, he contended, it risks alienating audiences, deepening political divisions, and preventing meaningful understanding. What began as an attack on the journalists soon evolved into a larger call for more responsible journalism. The spokesperson's comments were not just a defense of Trump's policies, but a broader challenge to the media's role in shaping political outcomes. He argued that the media must do better in offering a fair and balanced representation of all political perspectives, regardless of personal bias. In this sense, the exchange transcended its immediate context, shining a spotlight on the ethical responsibilities of the media in a rapidly changing political landscape. By advocating for greater balance and fairness in coverage, Trump's spokesperson pushed for a shift away from partisan journalism toward a more objective, inclusive approach that respects all sides of the political spectrum. The criticism of the BBC from Donald Trump's spokesperson went far beyond the selection of guests. Reaching deeper into the network's broader narrative about the Trump administration, the spokesperson's outrage stemmed from his belief that the BBC had consistently given a platform to individuals who were fundamentally opposed to Trump's leadership, often without presenting counter-arguments or alternative viewpoints. His primary concern was the network's portrayal of Trump as a dictator, a term he saw as recklessly used by members of the far-left wing of the Democratic Party. According to the spokesperson, this characterization was not only misleading, but also harmful, as it distorted public understanding of Trump's political agenda and governance. His passionate response to the BBC interview was an attempt to highlight what he saw as irresponsible and biased practices in mainstream media. He argued that by presenting such extreme views without balancing them with more moderate perspectives, the BBC was contributing to the spread of misinformation. The spokesperson's anger was particularly intense in relation to an interview with a Democratic congresswoman who had used inflammatory language against Trump. He felt that such language was presented as legitimate political discourse, without any meaningful challenge or opportunity for a broader discussion. For him, this was not just an issue of media bias, it was a matter of accountability. He strongly believed that, as a publicly funded institution, the BBC had an obligation to reflect a more balanced and accurate portrayal of political events, especially when discussing divisive figures like Trump. The spokesperson argued that, by amplifying voices hostile to Trump without offering any counterpoint, the BBC was fostering a distorted and one-sided understanding of American politics. Moreover, the spokesperson accused the BBC of attempting to manipulate British public opinion about American politics. His comments were not merely an emotional outburst, but an attempt to challenge the role of the media in shaping political narratives. By airing such interviews without providing balance or necessary context, he argued that the BBC was undermining the public's ability to form their own informed opinions. While rooted in his support for Trump, his argument also raised larger questions about media responsibility. The spokesperson's remarks underscored a growing frustration with what he perceived as the media's lack of objectivity and its influence on public perception. In calling out the BBC for its practices, the spokesperson not only defended Trump's policies, but also raised significant concerns about media integrity. He was challenging the media's role in shaping political discourse and highlighting the potential dangers of presenting one-sided narratives without offering a more inclusive, balanced approach to political reporting. The confrontation between Trump's spokesperson and the BBC reporter revealed a significant issue that has increasingly become a focal point in political discourse: the influence of media in shaping public opinion. The spokesperson's criticism extended beyond simply disagreeing with the congresswoman's views. It was about the larger issue of how the media selectively amplifies certain voices while silencing others. His frustration was rooted in what he perceived as the BBC's intentional decision to give airtime to individuals with extreme anti-Trump views, without offering an equal platform to those who might present a more balanced or nuanced perspective. He argued that this selective representation was not just an oversight in journalism, it was a distortion of the truth. The BBC, by featuring figures who labeled Trump as a dictator or fascist, and failing to provide a substantive rebuttal or context, was not merely reporting the news but actively shaping it. For the spokesperson, this was not only a journalistic failure but a dangerous practice. He believed that, as a prominent global broadcaster, the BBC had a responsibility to present a fair and balanced view, particularly on contentious issues like Trump's presidency. The lack of balance in the interview reinforced a narrative that cast Trump in an overwhelmingly negative light, without providing an opportunity for his policies or achievements to be fairly discussed. According to the spokesperson, this kind of reporting contributed to an increasingly polarized public opinion, making it harder for people to engage with political issues in a fair and informed manner. The issue of media bias, particularly in large institutions like the BBC, is not a new one, but the spokesperson's comments brought it to the forefront in a particularly charged moment. He argued that the BBC was not just reflecting public sentiment, but actively shaping it by providing a platform to figures who openly criticized Trump without allowing for any counter-arguments. This, he asserted, led to a distorted understanding of American politics, which ultimately undermined the public's ability to engage with the issues at hand in a meaningful way. In today's political climate, where information is more accessible than ever, the need for media outlets to operate with integrity and accountability has never been more important. The spokesperson's critique emphasized the role of media in bridging or widening the gap between political factions. His challenge to the BBC was a call for a return to journalistic standards that prioritize fairness and accuracy over political agendas, urging media outlets to ensure all voices are heard and considered. The fiery confrontation between Trump's spokesperson and the BBC reporter underscores a deeper issue: the manipulation of political narratives by major media outlets. In a world where information is consumed quickly and in large volumes, the role of influential organizations like the BBC has become more crucial in shaping public perception. The spokesperson's outspoken criticism pointed to a rising sentiment that significant media players, including the BBC, are failing in their duty to deliver news in a fair and unbiased manner. By providing platforms to individuals who relentlessly attack Trump with limited opportunities for rebuttal, the BBC not only violated fundamental journalistic standards, but also contributed to the growing political division among the public. The spokesperson's remarks went beyond defending Trump's character. They were a call to recognize the power media wields in shaping political outcomes and the need for more responsible journalism. He argued that by allowing far-left figures to dominate the conversation without offering a counterpoint, the BBC became complicit in distorting the public's understanding of political events. This one-sided portrayal has real-world consequences, further solidifying political divides and making constructive dialogue between opposing viewpoints less likely. The spokesperson's frustration was not merely about defending Trump, but about challenging the media's increasing tendency to shape narratives based on political biases. He accused the BBC of presenting inflammatory rhetoric as truth, leaving little room for opposing views to be heard. The notion that a major media outlet could shape a narrative without any accountability or challenge underscores the dangerous intersection between media and politics today. As the spokesperson stressed, a media organization's ultimate responsibility should be to inform, not manipulate. When outlets like the BBC give voice to partisan figures without providing a platform for opposing arguments, they fail in their role as impartial communicators and contribute to the erosion of trust between the media and the public. The spokesperson's emotional response highlighted this critical issue, reminding viewers that the credibility of the BBC and similar institutions will continue to be questioned unless they address their biases. It's not enough for the BBC to claim neutrality. It must prove its impartiality by ensuring that all political perspectives are represented fairly, giving due consideration to those who disagree with the dominant narrative. This challenge was a powerful reminder that, in a democracy, media organizations must be held accountable for their role in shaping political discourse. The broader implications are clear. The public, both in the UK and elsewhere, deserves media outlets that prioritize truth over partisanship, fostering an environment where all views can be debated respectfully and equitably. The heated exchange between Trump's spokesperson and the BBC reporter highlighted a growing divide between mainstream media and its audiences, as well as increasing public skepticism regarding media integrity. The spokesperson's outburst, filled with frustration and anger, was not a one-off incident but reflected a larger, ongoing conflict over the media's influence on political narratives. For many, the BBC is considered a key establishment voice, one expected to uphold journalistic integrity and impartiality. However, the spokesperson's sharp criticism pointed to a perceived pattern of bias in the network's coverage, especially when it came to political issues involving figures like Donald Trump. The spokesperson argued that the BBC failed to provide a platform for balanced discussions, often giving airtime to critics of Trump without offering opportunities for rebuttal. This, he claimed, illustrated the BBC's unwillingness to engage in fair, objective journalism. His remarks were not merely about defending Trump, but about challenging what he saw as the media's role in advancing a political agenda. This confrontation underscored a deeper issue, one that goes beyond individual politicians and addresses the broader question of how the media shapes public opinion and political discourse. For the spokesperson, the BBC's biased reporting was more than just poor journalism. It was an active attempt to shape public perception in line with specific political ideologies. The frustration he expressed mirrored a wider sentiment that mainstream media outlets, including the BBC, have shifted focus from providing news to pushing certain ideological viewpoints. As the spokesperson emphasized, this approach risks alienating significant portions of the public who feel their opinions are not being represented fairly. In a democracy, where the media plays a crucial role in educating and informing citizens, this one-sided reporting damages public trust and weakens the foundation for open, fair political debate. By focusing more on advancing political narratives than on presenting balanced coverage, media outlets like the BBC run the risk of further deepening societal divides, leaving people disillusioned and disengaged from political discourse. The growing dissatisfaction with media bias in the UK and beyond highlights the urgent need for more responsible and impartial journalism. If the media fails to represent diverse viewpoints fairly, it undermines the democratic process and erodes the trust that is essential for a healthy political environment. See you again.